Hi everyone and welcome to another Parkside Live. Thank you so much for joining us for the second in our series on the way of wisdom. And tonight we're going to be talking about transcending transactions.
Yes. Recently I was wrapping up a project with a mate of mine I do a bit of work with, and we walked over to my work ute, which has been sitting in the sun for a while, and on the back of my work ute is a large shiny silver toolbox, and my friend leant on it and then pulled his hand back, said, "That's hot." And because it was a winter's day, I didn't think it was that hot, and so I put my hand on it and it just seemed warm to me. He looked at me with this incredulous look on his face. He said, "How can you keep your hand there for that long?" I said, "I don't know, it's just warm." And so he put his hand where my hand had been and he goes, again. And he goes, "Man, that's weird." And I said, "Yes, I can't tell my kids if the washing up water is hot or not, because for whatever reason, I think my hands have just become a bit used to poor treatment, probably. And if I say, "Oh, it's not that hot," they will often put their finger in and go, "Oh, Dad, that was me." And I said, "Sorry, I wasn't trying to trick you."
Yeah.
And the point of that story is that we all experience pain differently in our lives. Yeah. Each of us, I guess, goes through challenges and we feel that uniquely. I think one of the worst things you can say to someone who's experiencing pain in their life is, "Oh, I know exactly how you feel."
Yeah.
Because we don't. While it's trivial, the heat from the toolbox was very hot and painful to someone and not painful to someone else.
Yeah.
What we also know is that when we go through life, there can be painful moments. Those moments are often indiscriminate and without reason. When someone gets attacked on the street, often there's no explanation. I was doing some work with a youth service, and we had a policeman came in and he was advocating for a particular process that tried to make reconciliation where safe and where possible between an offender and a victim. And he wanted to see reconciliation happen if that was possible. And one of the questions that was asked was, who has been affected by what you've done? How have they been affected? And then after that, and that was actually a powerful thing for an offender in the presence of someone who they had attacked, to hear that person say, "This is how your actions affected me." And sometimes it was theft. "This is how you stealing my purse affected me." Sometimes it was physical assault. "This is how." A follow-up question was then, "Why did you do that?" And often victims want to ask that, "Why did you do that?" Yeah. And this police officer reported that in the majority of cases, when the offender was asked, "Why did you do that?" the answer was along the lines of, "You were there." They weren't looking for a particular person, they just wanted to do something. And as we go through this life, evil often works like an uncoiling spring. It doesn't really have a direction or a plan, it just spreads out and hits everyone. And tonight we're going to consider someone who went through suffering, but consider how that can shape our view of the world and our place in it. And so we want to just start off right now by talking about our experiences of pain. And I recognise that if you're watching this could bring up some painful memories for you. And we're not intending to get you to re-experience that. The reality of our lives is that we all are confronted with challenging situations to varying degrees. But we want to explore, when this year, in the last 12 months, have you experienced what you would describe as a significant pain or a significant trauma? And I don't know if there's a moment that you have that you feel you could share here just briefly that you felt you've either experienced significant pain or significant trauma?
Yeah, I think for me it's not really in the last 12 months,
Yep.
but it's an ongoing thing from
Right.
being diagnosed with cancer,
Yep.
and going through treatment and just all that comes with that. Then the fear that kind of hangs overhead.
Yeah.
Most days.
Yeah. Yeah. And so with that diagnosis and then having to confront that fear most days, what questions, if any, does that raise for you?
I think it's not always so much a question, but it's not fair. Like, and even as I say it's not fair, there's a part of me that goes, "Oh, that's a really whingy, whiny kind of thing to say." Because in one sense, I know it kind of is fair because everyone goes through stuff. We just wish it wasn't this stuff. But yeah, because maybe at one point I went, "Why me?" But then I went, "Well, if not me, it might be someone else, so I'd rather it be me." But it's still not fair.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And without trying to put words into your mouth, sometimes I think the question or the statement, "It's not fair," sometimes can be very similar to the "why me?"
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm not saying that's for you, but you know, justice is, why does this happen to anyone? Yeah. But when we're going through pain, I think it knows our focus often a lot.
Yeah.
For me, I remember my mum being diagnosed with a disease that the doctors said would take her life in 3 to 5 years, and that was not the end of my life. I remember though, even though that wasn't my direct experience, saying, "Why her? Like, why her? This is a good woman.
Yeah.
She actually cares for other people, both emotionally but also actually physically. And you know, when people were sick within her community, she would take them meals. She was that kind of woman. Why? And I think when we're going through suffering, when we experience pain or trauma, it is a very natural question to ask, why? And as you're recalling your experiences of pain or significant trauma, I wonder what questions arose for you. And I think it's possible that perhaps "why me?" was on that list. And that's a real question. And I don't think there is an answer. And I'm not sure how you dealt with that trauma. I'm not sure how you dealt with that experience of pain. We all affect or take on different responses to that trauma or pain. How do you feel you cope with that fear that you feel emerges each day?
For me, sometimes I don't cope as well as I like to portray that I cope. Like, I just like to hole up and just think about other stuff. Sometimes it's for me, because I do believe that there's a God, I just pray. Sometimes it's not praying and going, "I know it's all going to be good." Sometimes I am declaring some truth, but sometimes it's just like, "God, I'm just going to declare the things I know about you," which is just, I know you're good, and that you're there. Sometimes that's all I have, but I know I'm not alone.
Yeah. And if you're watching this, perhaps you are a person who says, "I have faith." Perhaps you're a person who's wondering what that might look like in your life. Is a question that matters. How do you process pain and trauma? I know that in my life there have been moments where I've been a bottler. I take the pain that I've experienced and I just hold it in.
Yeah.
And at one point in my life I did that because I thought that was a strong response. Psychologists will tell you that if you actually keep holding it in, it doesn't make you more resilient, which is what I thought it did, but it actually makes us more fragile because we end up trying to hold onto all this pain and trauma that we're not meant to hold onto, and then it will often leak out that's something that we might consider quite insignificant. We just become more fragile. And so then the question is, well, then how do I become more resilient? And we want to draw on an old story. And this is a story of a man called Job. Now, this is a story that's quite long, and to tell the story in full would probably take about half an hour. And we're not going to do that. But this man, he was described as someone who was upright, who was blameless, who actively turned away from doing wrong, and who actually prioritised religious observance in his day. And he had a reputation in his community for that. But he was also a person who was successful in business. And then we get introduced to this weird kind of scene where there seems to be something going on in another world, and it's not then just in this community that this person, Job, is held up as an example, but in this kind of spiritual staff meeting, spiritual courtroom, that this person, this upright and blameless person, this person who actively turns away from wrongdoing, who follows, I guess, the morals of his day, is held up as this is a great example. And there is a voice in this courtroom that says, this person is only good because of the good things that he has. You watch, I'll take them all away. And that unfolds. He loses everything in this story. And then his partner comes to him and says, what are you doing? And he's very philosophical about it. He just says, naked I came into this world, naked I'll depart, and I'll praise God, which has echoes of what you just said, I think. And you're listening to this, and if you're a philosopher, you might think, well, that's quite stoic. And it is, but it's also quite true that we come into this world naked, we leave it naked, that's all we've got. And then the cycle repeats, everything escalates a level, and now this person, Job, experiences personal suffering so bad, and his partner actually says, why don't you just curse this God of yours and die? And he says, will I accept good and not bad from this God? And away he goes. Pretty philosophical outlook. I don't know if you could have said that.
No, actually, well, as you said that again, I was like, oh, how am I with that? I mean, sometimes we just have to, and in all of it go, well, it is how it is, but I choose to trust you in it.
Yeah. And so we read the story, and then these friends step in, and they genuinely want to comfort and console him. Matter of fact, they sit with him, and there's a line here, and it says that his friends came with him and they sat with him in silence for 7 days. And I think that when you're going through trauma, when you're going through a hard time, there's a powerful bit of wisdom in that. We actually often don't want people to say anything. There's nothing we can say.
To be with us.
That's exactly right. I mean, as you're watching this, you may be familiar with what it's like to grieve and what you go through. You go through periods of denial. This can't happen. Periods where you feel anger about this person was taken away from me. A time when you grieve, you miss that person. You try and, I don't know, debate it. You might even feel a bit depressed. Some people will talk about this idea of bargaining. It should have been me, not them. And while it's quite dry to talk about, when you're in the middle of a diagnosis, when you're in the middle of losing someone you love, when you're in the middle of your significant pain or your significant trauma, that's the reality of our life. We go through that again and again and again. And the worst thing, as we said earlier, is someone who comes in and goes, I know how you're feeling. I have the words. One of the most powerful gifts is someone who says, I'm with you. I'm not here just trying to say the right thing. I just want to be with you. That's a true friend. And then I hope when you went through your experience of pain or trauma that you experienced it. I mean, when you received your diagnosis, I remember you telling me something along those lines.
Yeah, well, I just called you and my sister, and we all just met down at the beach and just sat together and stared at the waves.
Yeah.
Because there was really nothing to say that would make it better.
Yeah.
But it also meant that I wasn't in it by myself.
Yeah. And even after that, you gathered a group of friends.
Yeah, well, I felt like I needed to gather my tribe, is how I kind of felt God actually prompting. And just to, like, I'm not the gather people kind of person. I'm introvert and quite private.
I'll second that, not at all.
But in that instance, and it showed the power of that, I guess. That's what God was trying to show me, when usually I try to do everything by myself. But even just from the beginning, going gather your tribe. And so I gathered people who would just be with us in whatever it was. And
I think it feels quite weird when you're the one going through something. It would be so good if someone just said, "Hey, we are going to do this for you." I think it was courageous of you to gather those people, to say, "Hey, you come to me. I'm going to organise this. You come to me." But because you took that courageous step, people gathered.
Yeah. Well, and I did have one other friend who took it upon herself to then gather some other people to do stuff for us for like the whole 18 months of treatment. I thought we might be able to do it for a few months, but they did it for 18 months.
That's good.
Yeah.
And out of all those gatherings, you remember that one person who said that one thing that made it all right? No.
But again, it was the massive thing of where you and I aren't, but I'm not doing it on my own.
Yeah.
Because it can feel very upsetting.
It can. And yet we laugh at that. And yet how often when someone we know is going through some significant pain or trauma, and we think, I have to have that right thing to say that's going to make it all okay.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen. Like
No.
this, I don't know if there's been anyone who's ever suffered who's had that person go, I remember that time that way. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Take an example from what we're exploring tonight. Turn up, listen to your story where you courageously invited people, and it was simply, I'm not alone. People are with me here. And as we look at this thing here, the story goes on to another chapter. It talks about someone who says, look, you're a good person. You are a strong member of our community that people look up to, people have learnt from, that people admire. And then one of his friends, one of these same people who turned up and said, I'm just with you. Okay, but in all my life, I've never seen bad things happen to a good person.
Which is odd.
But that sets up the question. When you went through your significant pain or trauma, why me? That's a fair question. And it's often like, what have I done to deserve this? And it's made even more complicated when our pain or our suffering, we have some agency that may or may not have contributed to that.
Yeah.
What have I done to deserve this? And the argument that goes on is like this. I didn't do anything. The next person sets up, what have you done, mate? What have you done? And sometimes if you're a religious person, you may have experienced that. Someone's gone down and maybe it's not articulated, but people go, what's happened? There's something's gone off the rails here. Perhaps when you're going through your suffering, you actually go through that internal dialogue. What have I done to deserve this? And it reflects a transactional view of the world. If I do good, good things will happen to me. If I do bad, bad things will happen to me. And I guess in some extent that's true. Matter of fact, even if you look through the pages of the scriptures, that you can find evidence for that. I want to know what is the kind of God that you believe in. Do you believe, some people will use the words universe at this point in time, in a God, in a fate, in a higher power, that if you do good things will happen to you? I don't think that's true. I've seen good people have horrible things happen to them. And yet, as this story unfolds, there's a moment when actually the higher power, God, steps into the story, and he actually says, all you people, you're wrong. You're off the mark. This person who suffered has spoken right of me. Never, the question of why is never answered. And I'm not saying don't ask it, but I don't think we're ever satisfied with the answer.
Because it doesn't make it okay.
Yeah.
Even if you had a good answer.
Yeah. And I want you to know that when you're going through whatever you're going through, everything's fair game. In the God that I believe in, there is no question too big for my God. There is no anger too great for my God. Pour it all out. God, why did you do this? God, why is this happening? Couldn't you have stopped this? Pour it all out. Because the God I believe in actually steps into suffering. That when we go from this ancient story to then a story which sets our date and time, that we live 2026 years after this, because our God stepped into history, stepped into pain. Someone once wrote that he endured the cross. He chose it. And that when you are in pain, that we have a God who shares your pain. We have a God who is open to your questions, your anger, your denial, your doubt, your bargain. And that when you're experiencing significant trauma, I'd say just come to Jesus. There are many wise and skillful people out there who can help you on this process. Jesus says, come to me. I am the God who steps in to pain. And if you're going through a moment like that, if you're still processing from a moment of significant pain or trauma, I want to encourage you, take this opportunity to say, Jesus, I give you my pain. Jesus, I give you my trauma. You're the God who steps in, who says, I am with you. I am here to love you. And when you do that, you'll begin to experience a love like you've never experienced before. A tangible and real experience of love from the Creator who steps into pain, the Creator who shares our pain. If that's a decision that you're ready to make as you're watching this, pray with us now. Jesus, I give you my pain. Jesus, I give you my trauma. Give me your life. Give me your love. Jesus, I give you my life. Give me your life. And if you prayed that prayer, we would love to hear from you and support you in any way we can. Whether that's in person around this table or whether that's digitally, drop us a direct message or a comment. And we'd love to start a conversation with you. Thanks for tuning in. God bless.
Bye.